AITA for refusing to let my brother's family stay with me after they lost their home. I'm 34 years old, and I've worked hard to create the life I have now. A life that, for the most part, is peaceful and uncomplicated. I own a modest 3-bedroom house that I bought 5 years ago, just after I got my promotion at work. It wasn't a huge house, but it was mine, and that felt like a massive achievement at the time. I live alone, and I'm content. I work from home full-time, so one of the rooms is my home office. The other is a guest room, which doubles as a hobby space where I keep my music equipment and gaming setup. It's where I go to relax, unwind, and recharge. It's my sanctuary. But that peace started to crack the day I got the call from my older brother, John. John is 38. He's always been the more carefree one in the family. Growing up, he was the one who seemed to breeze through life with minimal effort, always able to talk his way out of anything. He was charming, charismatic, and had this ability to make people laugh, which meant he always had a crowd around him. In contrast, I've always been the responsible one, the one who planned, saved, and worked hard to build a solid future. It wasn't always easy, but I knew what I wanted, and I went after it. John, on the other hand, never quite figured out the whole adulting thing. He made plenty of mistakes over the years, things I had to help him with time and time again. Still, I always believed that, eventually, he'd get his act together. After all, we're family. I'd always been there for him, even when I had my doubts. But recently, things had started to unravel. John lost his high-paying job 2 years ago. It wasn't just that the job was lost, it was how it happened. He was late to work almost every day, didn't meet deadlines, and seemed to take everything for granted. The job was his dream job, and he let it slip through his fingers because he didn't take it seriously. When he lost it, I tried to support him, encouraged him to get back on track. I even helped him find a new job, though it didn't pay nearly as much. But things didn't improve. Instead, John bounced from one low-paying job to another, never sticking around for long. Meanwhile, his wife, Sarah, worked part-time a retail job. They had 3 kids, Mia, 12, Max, 10, and Lucy, 7. And the financial situation kept getting worse. But despite the struggle, they didn't adjust their lifestyle. They refused to downsize their house, kept their kids in expensive private schools, and enrolled them in pricey extracurricular activities. I could see the financial strain, and I couldn't understand why they wouldn't cut back. Every time I tried to talk to John about it, he would brush it off. "We'll be fine," he'd say. "We'll figure it out." But they didn't. The day I got the call from John, I could tell something had gone terribly wrong. His voice was different, tense. It took him a while to get to the point, but finally he said, "We lost the house." I didn't know what to say. It felt like a punch to the gut. I had seen it coming, but hearing the words made it real. His family had been struggling for so long, but I didn't expect it to come to this. They had lost their home due to foreclosure. They had failed to keep up with the mortgage payments, and now they had nothing. No house, no savings, and no way of getting back on their feet. I was devastated for them, of course, but I also felt a rush of frustration. How had it gotten to this point? How had they ignored all the advice my parents and I had given them? Why had they continued to live beyond their means? The questions flooded my mind, but I didn't voice them. This wasn't the time for that. John's voice cracked as he continued. "We don't have anywhere else to go. Can we stay with you? Just for a few months, until we figure things out?" At that moment, I froze. My heart sank and my mind raced. I wanted to help, I really did. But the reality hit me hard. My house was simply too small. I only had 3 bedrooms, and one of those rooms was my office, where I worked every day. The other was my guest room and hobby space. There was no room for 6 people, not comfortably anyway. And the thought of having them all in my house for an indefinite amount of time, with kids running around and disrupting my work and my peace, it felt overwhelming. I knew that if I said yes, it wouldn't just be a few months. It would turn into a year or more. I didn't want to take that on. I had worked hard for my independence, and the idea of giving it up, of losing the sanctuary I'd created for myself, was more than I could bear. But how do you say no to family in a time of crisis? I took a deep breath and told John, "I can't. I'm really sorry, but I just don't have the space." I could hear the silence on the other end of the phone. Then he asked me what they were supposed to do. I told him I could help in other ways. I offered to pay for a hotel for a couple of weeks, and I would help them find an affordable apartment. I even offered to cover the security deposit. But that wasn't enough. John blew up. "You have the space," he yelled. "You're choosing your comfort over family. How could you do this? We're your family." I felt the sting of his words, but I stood firm. I knew I couldn't sacrifice my entire life to fix their mistakes. It wasn't my responsibility to bear the weight of their poor decisions. But hearing the hurt in his voice made it feel like I was doing something wrong. He called me selfish, and a part of me believed it. Was I being selfish? I don't think I was. But why did it feel like I was the villain in this story? In the end, John and his family ended up moving in with my parents. Initially, they didn't want to because they didn't want to live by their rules, but they didn't have any other choice. It felt like a relief that they weren't on the streets, but the guilt has been eating at me ever since. Then came the texts. From my extended family. From cousins, aunts, uncles. Everyone was telling me I was wrong. They said I abandoned my brother when he needed me the most. That I should have made it work. That family comes first. And then, Sarah started posting passive-aggressive messages on social media. "You find out who your real family is when things get tough," she wrote. "Some people are too selfish to help when you need them." It felt like a slap in the face. I didn't deserve that. I was just trying to protect my life, my home. But the guilt, it's still there, every day. And the question that keeps haunting me, did I make the right choice? Should I have sacrificed my peace, my space for them? Or was I right to protect myself from their mistakes? I'm lost. I just want to know, AITA for not letting my brother's family stay with me?